Thanks for coming in today, Coach. We're just going to discuss the class that we came and observed you. My name is Levi Steinhauer, as you know. This is Adam Broniker. We just want to give you a little rundown about our observations that we saw the day we came and observed and what we're doing. So to start with, we didn't really give you a whole lot of information about what we're observing that day when we came in. So we'd like to run you through that. So what we're doing is we're filling out a CBAS, which is a coaching observation assessment system. And we're looking at reactive behaviors such as reinforcement, non-reinforcement, punishment, ignoring mistakes, things along those lines, and spontaneous behaviors, which are general technical instructions, general encouragement, organization, things along those lines. What this system does is allows us to come out and observe behaviors, which allows us to identify best practices, so we can then take that into our own coaching practices, and we can run that against some research and just kind of compile everything and see what the best coaches out there, the best teachers, best educators are doing in their coaching practices.
To go along with that, we have a couple of graphics for you, just breaking down some of the main points that we talked about in your assessment. If you just want to take a look at it, the first one is more like a circle, and that's all of your assessments, so that would be all 298 of your behaviors, and then it's broken down by percentages, so you can see the three larger chunks are your non-reinforcement, your reinforcement, and your ignoring mistakes. And you flip over to the second page, that is your breakdown of time. And we thought that you did a very good job of your time, as well as your smallest chunk of time was absolutely nothing. And then your largest amount of time is the competition skill stuff. If you flip over to the next side, those are your three biggest behaviors again. So that's your non-reinforcement, reinforcement, and your ignoring mistakes. So there's your percentage breaks down and everything like that.
So a couple quick things now that you can kind of see the breakdown of your results and everything. A couple quick things right off the bat that we observed that we really liked. The first one was you had 298 behaviors. That was a very large amount of behaviors. When we compared that with our classmates and our other observations, you definitely had the highest. What I really liked about that, and what I saw when we were there, was your reinforcement that you had, which you can also see on this sheet here, made up for the most behaviors. And this really created a good environment, a good learning environment. I thought it created a positive learning environment, and it really brought a lot of energy to your class. I felt like the kids that were doing things right were definitely told that, and the kids that weren't doing things right, which you can see in some of these other mistake contingent encouragement and things like that, were told when they figured it out. You did a very good job of coming back and telling them that they had been successful and that they were doing things correctly. So I do think, although you had a high amount of behaviors, and we'll get into that a little bit later as well, I think that was a very positive thing.
Another thing is we liked how you connected with your students. It felt like you guys had a nice little trust and like a relationship that you guys like respected each other. And it was like as soon as you guys came in the door, like you didn't waste a lot of time because like they kind of knew what was going on, and you just had that relationship with your students that looked like they respected you and you respected them as well.
So now that we've kind of explained a little bit more about what we've done, and you can kind of see with the visuals where you lay, we have a couple questions for you. We'd really like to hear your input. So my first one was, although your reinforcement is very high, your non-reinforcement and your ignoring mistakes are also very high. They're your next two biggest ones. So this literature kind of says multiple different things about it, but we just want to kind of hear your take on maybe why your non-reinforcement or why you're ignoring mistakes is so high.
Well, first of all, the reinforcement, I'll talk about a little bit about that, is you, as a coach and as a teacher, you're always having to have feedback to these kids because they don't understand, they don't communicate very well, they're always texting, so you are always having to tell them something, because if they don't, they get in their mind, hey, he doesn't care about me, he doesn't think anything about me, or I don't have to do anything. I can just do whatever I want over here. With ignoring mistakes, which there are a lot of, as a teacher, you kind of have to have the higher order learning, and you got to have higher learning questions that you have to ask these kids. So they got to think through themselves. If you don't let them do that, you're just telling them everything. They're just waiting for you like robots telling you, going, hey, tell me what to do next. All right, I want them to be able to learn. And after so many times, I will eventually, if they're still messing up, I will correct the form, and we'll keep on working that way. But that's kind of the way I look at things. You want to give them a lot of feedback, but you want to give them the ability to learn themselves, as opposed to just being spoon-fed everything.
How do you see that work out? Kind of like as they go through it, do you see that it takes 1 or 2 repetitions? It takes 3 or 4? Do you see like it takes a lot of repetitions?
Well, it'll take 3 or 4 repetitions, and I think you as a coach as well, I've seen that, and as a player, I mean, you look at yourself, and even as a student, it may take you a couple tries to get to it and to kind of just, as the a lame term, figure it out. So when they do figure it out, there's a sense of empowerment for them, so they feel a little bit better about themselves. But it does take a few, and then you just gotta kind of reinforce their ideas, reinforce my ideas of what they need to learn, and then hopefully they can kind of pick it up and gradually get better, because it may not happen 100% the first time, but eventually they will grasp the concept.
Right. Is that last one on this? Is that something that you kind of developed as you matured as an educator, as a coach?
Yes, because at first when I started coaching or teaching, it was just tell them what to do, and that's it. And it's just bam, 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 and then you kind of give them a little time to have a little bit of leeway to kind of do things themselves.
And my question is, you spent very little time organization-wise. I think it was like 0. So my question was, have you done this drill before? Like, did you just like make it up on the fly? Have the students done the drill before? Like, they kind of seemed like they knew what they were doing. So like, how many times have you done this before? Is it something you regularly do?
Well, from the beginning of class, from the warm-up, kind of how everything goes, you kind of get them in a steady routine. I get observed from principals a lot, so they want to see a routine. They don't want to see kids having no clue what to do. So when you get them in lines, they have an idea of how to get in lines, get into groupings, so they know exactly what they're doing, and then you can just kind of bark out some orders or some phrases, and they can kind of get it, and then you can go from that point on.
Nice. Want to talk about a couple quick things we learned. We thought this was a very valuable experience for us. As you mentioned, as fellow coaches in the athletic world, one thing that I really liked was the way that you set up your session. So I noticed you did a quick warm-up. As Adam has alluded to, you used very little wasted time. You give a quick explanation, went into your warm-up, and then from there another quick explanation, and you seem to use a part-whole method in your coaching style. So you broke down a drill, which is lateral or change of direction in this instance. You showed them how to absorb force. You absorb force, redirect it. You just kept building on that. I really found that very valuable, and I'd like to start using that in my practice. I think as you talked about with the ignoring mistakes and everything, it gave those students an opportunity to learn the very simplistic form, take it a little further, and some of those kids, kind of from what we observed, what I think I saw was some of them, they got the first part, they didn't get the first part and the second part put together, but from you allowing them to try and to learn, it kind of seemed as they started to pick those up, each and every one. But I really found that valuable, and that's something that I'm going to take from you and put in my own practice.
It's smart of you.
Thank you.
And one thing that I learned from you is the importance of connecting with your students or patients or athletes or however you want to put it. The way that they just walked in the door and respected you, and then like since we had people observing you, like they just like were on like their best behavior. Can you just elaborate more on like how like what you think, like how important you think the importance of connecting with your athletes or your students?
That's probably one of the most important things that you got to do. They got to have some trust in you where they can come and communicate with you. As a teacher, it's not always just about the athletic part of it. There's other things that they have to do, because I deal with a lot of non-athletic kids that are not in sports. So you have to deal with their other side stuff, that their daily lives. Then you get them in here and you try to break it down for them and all that stuff. But I think it's probably the most important thing is to have trust with your kids, a relationship, just where they can come and talk. And I'll tell kids, if you're having a bad day, come to my office. Say what you need to say. I don't care. The door's closed. Let's talk. Let's get it off your chest, so we're not going out there and bugging everybody else or ruining the lesson that we're doing. So it's very important to have a relationship with the kids.
You brought up an interesting point there. You deal with a lot of non-athletic as well as athletic kids. How do you see the interaction between those two groups of kids? Do you see those athletic kids helping the non-athletic kids sometimes in your drills or in your classes, or how do you kind of see that?
That'll depend upon the person. Some of these kids will get out there and do not mind helping other kids, and you get some that are just, I guess, they kind of the stuck-up kid who they just want to look better than everybody else, and that's all they're going to do. But on the most part, most kids will help out other kids. Probably 90% of the time they will do that. And it's interesting to see because you have that peer tutoring that you have out there, and they're just, a lot of times I can say, all right, you go help this group over there, all right, because you're excellent in your abilities. Go show them some things,
Right.
Okay? And now they can have somebody that's superior to them and maybe relate a little bit better than what I could.
That kind of goes back to the point you brought up earlier too about empowering the kids. That seems almost as if you let some of those kids that you do trust and they're very good at go teach those other kids. It might bring a large kind of empowerment factor to those kids as well.
And they learn from that part of it as well.
Right. A couple quick things that we want to talk about that can maybe just be adjusted. Again, one of my biggest ones, and we've kind of talked about it already, was ignoring mistakes and things like that. Hearing your take on it, that makes a lot of sense. As we prepared to come observe you, we found a lot of that in the literature, letting the kids figure it out themselves and things like that. Along those lines, and kind of hearing what you said, it may take a few more repetitions. When I first saw that, I was really kind of alarmed at it, like, hey, he's staring at this kid, not fixing anything. Being a young coach myself, I think I overcoach, almost as you alluded to as well. Early on, you thought you had to tell him every single thing. So that was something that really kind of stuck out to me. But hearing your take on it, it makes it a lot less serious in my mind. The only thing I could maybe say or maybe suggest is that you do give a little bit more feedback to some of those kids. The one reason I say that is in the literature, we also found that sometimes when you don't give enough feedback, those kids don't know if they're doing it right and wrong, and they become discouraged. Mm-hmm. So although they may need a few reps, they may need also a little bit of feedback during a couple of those reps, just so they don't get discouraged and kind of shut down completely.
Correct.
A couple take-home points or some things we want you to do in the future is we want to see if you can try setting up some goals. This can either be like personal or professional goals. So, is there any goals that you have like right now for like the next 5 to 10 years on where you want to be, what you want to be doing, anything like that?
Yeah. What would I like to be doing? My goals have changed throughout the course of my teaching career. I think it's evolving. But right now, I'm kind of in the point of, I'm getting later in my career. So I look at retirement. I know, ready to get out of here. I plan on staying in the public education for at least probably 5 to 10 years, and then I would like to get into full-time college and coach football at that level. I like the maturity level of being at Cumberland coaching football. It's been a blast. Dealing with those type of kids as opposed to kids that think they're God's gift to earth, but in reality they're not. And then you get to the college level and they kind of have that maturity where they realize that they're not that way. So my goals on that would be is to continue on what I'm doing. I do not want to be an administrator. I enjoy working with kids. I enjoy coaching. Those are the types of things I still like to do. But and then retire and then get into coaching football full time.
And then one thing we found in the literature that we think would be helpful for you is like reflection. So reflecting back on either like a session, say like, oh, that didn't go as well as I planned. Like, what can I do in the future to help better that session? Or as far as like going along with your goals, like how am I going to reach these goals? Like, am I on the right steps? Am I doing the correct things to reach these goals? So we want to challenge you to do a little more reflecting if you don't reflect already.
Reflection is probably one of the best things that you can do. Mm-hmm. And it's a constant deal. And sometimes you get stagnant, and you're doing your routine, and that's what you're doing each day, and then you don't reflect on what you make better. But that's a great point to always try to reflect. Mm-hmm. That's something that's just great advice.
Mm-hmm. Just to close out, as we said, we learned a lot from you and your observation. We think it was a very valuable session for us. It was a very valuable thing for us to do. We'd just like to hear any feedback from you if there's anything you think we could have done better. If this was a valuable experience from you, if you learned from this experience as well. Just kind of want to hear your take on and things maybe you'll utilize going forward.
Yeah. Well, just like what we talked about, reflection. I mean, I need to jump into that a little bit more, even through the course of the lesson plan that I'm doing on that particular day. You know, you had to have it really quick. I may need to change something like with the ignoring some mistakes. I could be on them a little bit quicker instead of just sitting there kind of watching, seeing if they're going to figure it out or not. Maybe be a little bit quicker, maybe give them a little hints in that category. Valuable information. I've always thought being observed kind of always helped me as a teacher, because you get stagnant, you're doing the same thing, and you're just kind of coasting, and then all of a sudden someone observes you, you kind of step back up and kind of get back on what you're supposed to be doing, your goals and all that stuff. No, I thought everything was great. I thought what you guys did was very good, very attuned to what was happening. I mean, you had a specific goal in mind, and that's what you guys went to. So, really, feedback for you guys. You guys are the master observers.
Thank you very much. Awesome. Well, we'd like to thank you for your time. I'd like to thank you for allowing us to come in, observe your session,
Anytime.
And give us the feedback and this great conversation we've had here. So, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.